Hello everyone, it's Daniel from TechMind Factory and welcome to this next video from the series called IdentiSphere Explorer. In this video, we are going to discover how to customize identity flows with Auth0 Forms. So let's start. As always, let's start with a little bit of theory. So what are Auth0 Forms? So forms can extend the identity flows with additional steps and business logic. We can use a no-code editor that lets users quickly build secure, personalized login flows. And this is what we are going to discover in this video. What can be done with Auth0 Forms? Forms provide seamless user experience within the Auth0 tenant domain, no external redirects. It means that we can extend those basic authentication or registration flows with additional steps, like collecting additional details about the user during the registration on the additional screen, or for instance, displaying the privacy policy that user will have to accept before creating the account, and everything will be incorporated into the flow provided by Auth0. So we don't have to build any custom pages and make some redirections using Auth0 actions, nothing like this. We can utilize Auth0 Forms to extend this basic behavior of identity flows in Auth0. We have access to ready-to-use components with built-in front-end and back-end validations. There is also support for custom logic, and third-party integrations are available for us out of the box. And important thing is that there is consistent branded look and feel with universal login in Auth0. So universal login works with Auth0 Forms, so we can really build those, I would say, rich identity journeys for users, like authentication journeys, registration journeys with universal login and Auth0 Forms. Okay, so now the question is like, what are some user scenarios where we can potentially use Auth0 Forms? So for instance, progressive profiling, so we can get more information about the users next time they sign in. So instead of, collecting all the details at once when user is registering, we can collect some minimal amount of the data, and once the user account is created and next time user is successfully authenticated, we can ask the user to provide additional details. Custom policies acceptance, okay? So we can require users to accept a new policy during the sign-in or sign-up flows. And this will be actually the scenario I want to present in this video. So actually, once the user is registered, next time user is signing in, user has to accept updated policy. Custom email with OTP. So we can send customized emails with OTPs using third-party email providers like SendGrid. And we can use Auth0 Forms for that and integrate with SendGrid to send those customized emails. And also communication preferences. So we can allow users to specify their preferred marketing communication. So we can build this additional step and ask, user, hey, how you prefer us to contact you, or actually what are the preferred methods to do it, and so on and so forth. This is also achievable using Auth0 Forms. Okay, perfect. So this is actually the screenshot from the Auth0 dashboard, and actually from the Forms section. And this is actually, as you can see, the flow when it comes to forms. So there is always like a starting point. There is a step. So for instance, in this case, this is information about the new policies update, and user has to agree to privacy policy, and user clicks continue button. And as a next thing here in this whole process, we have the flow. So actually the flow is responsible for updating, in this specific scenario, updating the profile for the user, information about the user, that user accepted a privacy policy. And of course, in the end, there is an ending screen, so we resume authentication flow. Okay, so it's really powerful because as we can see here in the middle of authentication or registration flow, I can add additional steps that will be displayed to the users. Okay, great. So let's talk about Auth0 Forms components right now. So let's start with fields. So fields are UI components where users input their information in forms. Examples, it can be text, it can be email address, it can be phone, or even dropdown. Blocks. So blocks are UI components that add functionality to the forms but do not gather any information from the user. So example can be next button, displaying some image, displaying some like information using rich text block here, like for instance for this policy. So this is actually about the blocks. And last thing, widgets. So pre-built components with third-party integrations. So widgets add client-side and server-side logic to the forms, and examples can be reCAPTCHA or Google Address integration. Okay, great. So when it comes to Auth0 Forms, there are flows, okay? And this is very important. So once we define this form step, as we can see here, this is the new policy update, and we have this checkbox. I agree to the privacy policy, there is continue button. There is actually the flow, okay? And flows are the visual representation of the server-side logic that occurs when a form is processed. Okay, that's very important. So actually the thing is that it's possible to add and configure a series of actions to create a flow. So every time we collect some data from the user, we can add the flow, and within the flow we can have specific actions that will be executed. So in this specific scenario here, after displaying the policies update to the user, once user accepted the privacy policy, we want to update this information for the specific user in Auth0 tenant. And we can do it using the flow and one of the actions that are added in this specific flow. Okay, great. So additionally, I want to mention Auth0 Forms Vault. This is very important. So when we use Auth0 Forms, obviously we have this possibility to add different kinds of integrations. So for instance, I mentioned integration with SendGrid for sending customized emails with OTPs. There can be also integration with Auth0 itself. So for instance, once user accepted privacy policy, we want to update app metadata for this user in Auth0. So for that, obviously, we have to use this client credentials flow and machine-to-machine authorization in this case. So we have to register application in Auth0, and for that we need client ID, client secret, and all those details that will be required to successfully authenticate and store this data in Auth0. And all those different kinds of like credentials, like client secrets, API keys, and so on and so forth, can be stored securely using Auth0 Vault. So Vault securely stores secrets and settings like API keys and tokens for authenticating requests to external services via Vault connections. And this includes accessing information in Auth0 too. Okay, so when it comes to Vault's connections, those can be created and modified from the Vault page or the flow editor when an action requires credentials. Okay, so every time we need this additional integration in our forms with some external service or with Auth0, we have to securely store those credentials, and to do it, we have to use actually the Vault in Auth0. Great. So now it's time for practical overview. So let's open Auth0 dashboard and let's see how actually we can implement Auth0 Forms. Okay, great. So here is my Auth0 tenant and Auth0 dashboard. And from the left side under Actions, there is this section called Forms. So let's click it. Another tab will be open. And this is actually the dashboard for managing and creating forms in Auth0. So here, by clicking Create Form button, I can actually either start from scratch, so like with empty form and build everything by myself from scratch. I can use a template, or I can import a template using the JSON file. So for now, let's use a template here. I want to show you this library here. So as we can see, there are different kinds of templates. So there is a template for progressive profiling. As we can see, we can configure this template or skip the setup. There is onboarding template here. Custom policies acceptance, so the one that we are going to use in this video, but also any other flows, like for instance, phone OTP verification with Twilio, email OTP verification with SendGrid, that's what I mentioned before, and also something that is interesting is that we can use verifiable credentials here. So we can require users to verify their identity using verifiable credentials stored in their digital wallet here. It's very impressive and interesting. But also other things here, like payment details with Stripe, marketing communication preferences I mentioned, and so on and so forth. So as we can see, different kinds of templates that we can use for our needs. And obviously, once we select specific template, we can customize and adjust this template accordingly to our needs. I selected terms of use acceptance template. Let me show you that. If I click it, this is actually the form here, as we can see. So there is this nice designer I can use here. Okay, and this is what I mentioned. Like there is always like starting step. And here is the actual form. So new policies update. There is information that by using IdentiSphere application, you agree to follow all applicable laws, blah, blah, blah. And I have to agree to the privacy policy. And here is continue button. And once user clicks continue button, flow is executed. And as you remember, I mentioned that when it comes to flow, there can be multiple steps and actions within the flow. So here, if I click Edit Flow, I can see all the steps that will be executed here. I can obviously add more steps by clicking plus button. So here I have one step, Update User. So what I want to do with this specific flow and this specific action, I want to actually update app metadata for the user when it comes to privacy policies acceptance. Okay, so here I want to store this information that user accepted privacy policy, also the timestamp, and as we can see, here is the Vault connection. So I'm using Auth0 machine-to-machine connection here. This is from my Auth0 Vault. So that's what I mentioned. To integrate with external systems, but also with Auth0, we need some specific credentials and we have to store them securely. And Vault is the perfect place for that. I will show the Vault in a minute. So this is actually the action that will be responsible for updating the user app metadata. And now if I get back to the flow, here I want to mention important thing. So let me actually close this. Here, as you can see, if I click this one, I have full access to what will be displayed and how it will be displayed on the form. So here for the privacy policy, for instance, there is a link. It references auth0.com website. For now, I can open this in a new tab when user will click it. And obviously, you know, like when it comes to other things here, I also can modify them. So like new policies update here, I can adjust the font and so on and so forth. So it's really, really powerful. And on the left side, as we can see, we have those components I mentioned. So we can customize our forms. So what I mentioned, there are fields like text, email, phone, choice, cards, drop-down. So all the elements that are used to actually collect some information from the users. But also if we scroll down, we can see the blocks. So those are like static elements that are not responsible for getting any data from the users. It's more about displaying the content or, you know, like moving forward. So next button, previews, rich text, that's what I mentioned before, or displaying some image here, or even HTML. And also widgets here. So reCAPTCHA, verifiable credentials, and Google address. Okay, perfect. So now when it comes to Vault, I want to mention that because to update this information, this app metadata for the user, obviously I need to use this secure connection with Auth0. So here, let me discard changes for now. If I expand information about my tenant, here is the vault. And as we can see in this vault, I have one vault connection. It's called Auth0. And in this vault, I store information about the application that I use to actually authenticate with Auth0. So I'm using machine-to-machine authorization, client credentials flow here. And here I have all the details included. To add new vault connection, we can click Add Vault Connection here. We can specify the name here. And as we can see, I can provide the tenant domain, the client ID, client secret, and also, I can specify an audience here also. And once it's done, let me close it. It's added here, and I can then securely communicate with my Auth0 tenant and, for instance, update information for the users in my Auth0 tenant. And now you can ask, okay, but how it's exactly done? So under applications in Auth0, let me select applications section. Here is Auth0 Forms M2M application registered, so machine-to-machine application. And as we can see here, I have all the required details to use client credentials flow. So domain, client ID, client secret. This data is stored securely in Auth0 Vault. And also when I click APIs, important thing is that I want to use Auth0 Management API to actually apply specific changes to user profiles. So here, if I expand Auth0 Management API, we can see that I selected specific permissions. So I can read users, I can actually read users' app metadata, I can create user app metadata, update users, delete app metadata for users. So those permissions are required to actually successfully update information about the users when it comes to this privacy policy. So now when it comes to this information about the privacy policy acceptance, we want to obviously store it under app metadata in Auth0 tenant in the user profile, and we want to avoid the situation that user can actually modify this field. So that's why we store it under app metadata, not user metadata. So here is my Daniel Tester profile, and if we scroll down, there is app metadata here, and as we can see, it's empty now. So what we will see right now during the demo, we will see that once the user is successfully authenticated, we will display the privacy policy update. User will have to accept it, and then we will get back here to check if there is any update under app metadata. So let's see now the demo application. So here is IdentiSphere web application, and obviously I have to sign in, so I will click login button. I'm redirected to universal login page provided by Auth0, and here I have to provide my login, obviously my password, and after that, as we can see, we have this information about new policies update. And here is the information we set in Auth0 Forms. By using IdentiSphere application, you agree to follow, blah, blah, blah. And here I have to agree to this privacy policy change. If I click Continue button, we can see the information that one or more fields are not valid. Please check errors and try again. So I have to select this privacy policy acceptance. And after clicking Continue button, I am successfully authenticated, redirected back to the application. So as we can see, here is the greeting, hello Daniel Tester. So right now, let's get back to Auth0 dashboard to check this user app metadata. So here is Daniel Tester profile in Auth0. There is no app metadata. Let me refresh the dashboard actually here, and let's check if we have any new details included there. Perfect. So it's refreshed. Let's scroll down and we can see that now under app metadata, we have privacy policies set to true, and there is also the timestamp. Perfect. So now we know that the user accepted the latest privacy policy. The last thing I want to mention here is the fact that I utilize Auth0 Forms in the platform I designed and developed called IdentiSphere. If you would like to learn more about this platform, I encourage you to visit my techmindfactory.com website and advisory section. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next videos.